Hey guys, James from Raw Strength. Today we're taking you through a little presentation on should you listen to music when you work out? And secondly, what type of music should you listen to when you work out if you do? Now, we're going to try release one of these every single week. So if there's a topic you'd like us to cover, whether that's strength training or weightlifting, just chuck it in the comments below, and while you're down there you can like and subscribe at the same time. Now, if you search this term, should you listen to music when you work out on YouTube or Google, you'll probably find a lot of David Goggins coming up talking about not training with music. You'll find other YouTubers talking about not training with music to callous the mind. Now, whether the research backs that up, it's debatable. Further, why deprive yourself of something that you enjoy? So without further ado, we're going to get straight into it. So what does the research say? So in 1996, in the Perceptual and Motor Skills Journal, they took songs from the top 10 charts from the previous 6 months, and they categorized them. Stimulative, which is tempo of more house music, sedative, which is more jazz music tempo, and then just white noise. White noise being something like if you have your fan on in the background. And what they did is they tested maximum grip strength straight after listening to these songs. And what they found was that after listening to stimulative music, participants produced significantly higher grip strength than after sedative music or white noise. Now, grip strength following sedative music was significantly lower than following white noise. So essentially, it looks like tempo of music might have an effect on maximum isometric strength. Following this, a more recent study in 2020 in the Frontiers of Psychology, they took women through either an endurance-based protocol or a high-intensity strength-based protocol. So that was walking, and where they measured heart rate and RPE. So RPE is simply rate of perceived exertion, which essentially is a scale of 1 to 10, and that 1 to 10 is how hard the participant thought the exercise was. And they did the same thing with the 1RM leg press. And they split the music conditions up into 4 different conditions. There was no music. There was low, so again, that's more like our jazz music. Medium, again, more like our house music. And then high, which is closer to drum and bass and maybe even hard dance. And as you can see in this little graph here, this is RPE mapped against music tempo. So there's quite a clear inverse relationship between RPE and music tempo. So as music tempo increases, how the participant perceives the exercise, or how hard the participant perceives the exercise, decreases as it goes down. And that's in both endurance efforts and in the high intensity 1RM effort. So based on these, it suggests that music tempo plays a key role into how we perceive exercise and also performance in strength training. Now, most of the previous research, like these 2 papers here, focused on predetermined music selection based on tempo. So they essentially just looked at music tempo as the one variable. But what other research has also looked at is the self-selection of music, regardless of the tempo used. Now, there were some guidelines within some of these papers where tempo had to be above about 120 beats per minute, so it wasn't sedative music, but it was music that the participants enjoyed, and it was self-selected by them. So a 2012 paper in the Journal of Strength Conditioning Research, they found that in the jump squat exercise, self-selection of music increased takeoff velocity and rate of force development compared to the no music condition. Now, takeoff velocity is a key determinant in jump height, and obviously rate of force development is important for sport and even for strength in some cases where it's how quickly you can produce force. Now, there was no change in upper body strength endurance, but with the music, there was a lower RPE compared with the no music group. So that kind of confirms the findings from the previous study that we talked about earlier. Now, another study in the Journal of Perceptual and Motor Skills, they found that the number of repetitions performed to failure with 60% of 1RM when listening to music was 5.8% higher, which is about 1 more repetition than when not listening to music. Now, this kind of goes against the previous study we just looked at in terms of upper body endurance. Now, the authors mentioned that volume wasn't self-selected, so that could have been a factor in the results of this study. So why might music have this effect? Well, it seems music can stimulate the human brain to such an extent that to ignore it is more difficult than interacting with it. Further, music influences emotional responses as well as many of the coordination of movements. It has a rhythmic pattern which seems to stimulate the brain. And as well as that, it seems to be a physiological arousal mediator. So it's just like our arousal bell curve, we know that being under aroused is not as detrimental to performance. Being over aroused is also detrimental, but there's a nice bell curve. And in the middle is that peak arousal where peak performance occurs. Now listen to music can help you get to that point. But is it just music? Now, the reason I split this little presentation up into music studies that didn't self-select or they were predetermined and music studies that allow participants to self-select their music is because self-selection is a powerful weapon in itself. And there's some good research in the self-selection area, specifically in different sports. One of them's in world champion kickboxers, and they found that if they self-selected punching combinations rather than being told what to do, they increased punching speed by 6 to 11% and impact force by 5 to 10%. Now, close to the home in the strength training area, which you might be more interested in, is that if you self-select loads during a 1RM test, so you self-select the loads you use to build up to your 1RM, you self-select the loads closer to your 1RM, whether you go up or down, can result in a 4% greater increase in 1RM compared to having predetermined weights. So how can you put this all into action? Choose your favorite music tracks for your big training sessions. Ideally, these are fast beats per minute tracks, as it seems that music tempo does have a stimulative effect on your strength training performance, but don't be limited by them. It seems self-selection itself is a powerful weapon that you can use. Now, anecdotally, my wife Mona, before she went out in the Commonwealth Games to win a bronze medal, was listening to Roxette. Now, Roxette does not fall under a stimulative music track in any of these, so it's going to come down to which music you like the best. You can also periodize your music based on your training cycle. So if you have an easier week, you can go for slower beats per minute music. And if you have a harder week, you can go for your faster beats per minute music. And this can help prevent music burnout. And it seems volume may have an impact. So loud music for your big sets, quieter music again for your easier weeks or easier sets. Now, if you want some free stuff, go in the description there. We have things for Olympic weightlifters, but we also have things for people who just want general strength training at home. Now, the Olympic weightlifting one, we have 16 exercises on how to fix your snatch and clean and jerk. You can go through that. It's an 8-day email course. For our general strength trainers, we have 11 tips to effectively train at home with minimal equipment and to see results. And in that, we also give you a 4-week program, and that's all free. So go down in the description and you can find all that. Again, if there's something you want us to cover, jump in the comments, let us know, and we'll look to cover that in our following week's presentation.